Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here and it's time for my What I've Read This Week. So I've read quite a lot of books and I haven't actually wrapped up quite a few of my audiobooks recently, so it's going to be a little bit of a big one this week because it is actually a bit longer than a week's worth of books, so don't get too shocked. There's quite a few here, but I didn't manage to read them all in 7 days, and I want to start by talking about the 2 audiobooks that I have recently listened to through the Audible app, which I love, and I've really been enjoying getting into audiobooks. I've been listening to maybe 1 or 2 a month. I've really loved utilising that time where I'm not able to sit down and physically read, popping my headphones in and listening to a bit of an audiobook. So these 2 are non-fiction ones. I thought I'd give a go at some non-fiction in the last month, and so the first one I listened to was Caitlin Moran's Moranifesto. I've had this on my shelf for quite a while and I was just not picking it up in physical form, and so I thought I would listen to it on Audible instead and see if that got me going, and I really enjoyed it. It was narrated by Joanna Neary, which she has got a very similar sound to Caitlin Moran, and I kind of wish Caitlin Moran had voiced it herself and narrated it herself, because I really enjoy hearing her talk. I think especially with non-fiction, and this is a collection of articles that she's written, I think it would have been really good to hear her read it, because it gives it her personality, which is all over the actual words, and I would have liked to have heard her read it personally. I think that's probably my only gripe with this. So there's loads of different things that were covered in this. We go from things like I'm hungover again, printers are evil, to the real life equality test, oh Hillary, suddenly I love you, mums are superheroes, the gayest Olympics ever. There's loads of different things in this, and I definitely picked up some points of interest through this and definitely had a few giggles along the way, so I really enjoyed it. It definitely didn't blow me away, but it was a solid read, and I'm glad that I listened to it on Audible because I think it helped me to get through it a bit quicker than maybe had I done. I find for some reason with collections of essays or with short stories, I sort of get into it, read maybe half a book, and then I put it down and don't seem to go back to it, because it's not like a one story. I really struggle to sort of get through the whole book, so Audible's really helping me with that. And I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, I decided to pick up The Geek Feminist Revolution by Kameron Hurley, and I listened to this on Audible as well. The narrator for this was C.S.E. Cooney, and unfortunately for me, this was a case of the narrator not being great, and so making it harder to listen to. I did find, however, that I sped this one up to 2 times, and it did make the reading go a bit better, but I didn't like the way this author spoke or the way that they used pauses. It just felt a bit stilted. I don't know, there's just something about this narrator didn't work for me. I did really enjoy hearing Kameron Hurley's thoughts though. I felt in places that she sort of repeated herself a little bit, but I did enjoy hearing a bit more about her journey and her journey into publishing and being a woman in science fiction and fantasy, and having a look at how she has to sort of self-evaluate and self-edit her work. You know, when someone comes back to you and says, well, why have you had to keep going on about why this woman's become a lesbian? Just let her be a lesbian, you know? And I thought that was interesting, and it was definitely a book I'm pleased I picked up and read, and it was a shame about the narrator, but as I say, if I sped it up to 2 speed, it did make the narration better and bearable. So I gave this one 4 stars as well. The next book that I picked up, I haven't actually got the copy of because the lovely Leanne Literary Diversions actually sent this to me to borrow, and I have posted it back to her, and so it is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is the sequel to A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I loved when I read last year, and I couldn't wait to read this one. And Leanne works for a bookshop, and she very very kindly sent me an ARC to borrow because she knew I was desperate to read it. So thank you so much to her for that. And I was very naughty and it took me a while to get to it. So I have now read it and I'm really pleased I have read it. However, I didn't enjoy it quite as much as A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I really loved that this book tackled issues of gender and equality and racism, but this one just didn't seem to flow quite as well for me as the first one. I think maybe that's because it's a much more static story. We're not following a massive group of characters on a journey through space. We're actually just following a couple of characters, mainly just the one character and the periphery characters around her on a planet. It's much more of an emotional journey than an action-packed story, which I tend to like in science fiction. And as I say, because the character pool was much smaller, I found that that didn't keep my interest quite as much. I also didn't like this sort of wrapping up in a neat little bow at the end. I felt like it was just too neat and happy and saccharine at the end, and I wish there had been something a bit more gritty. I really enjoyed it though, don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about a few issues that I had with it. I don't want to talk too much about the plot because if you haven't read Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, it could really spoil it for you. I did enjoy it and I'm really looking forward to any more in the series and seeing where the series goes, and I will definitely be picking up more. But it just wasn't quite up to the same as A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet for me, and so I gave it 4 stars. Next up, as part of the band bookathon, I picked up The Bermuda's Triangle by Maureen Johnson. This is the story of 3 girls, a very strong friendship, and they call themselves the Bermuda's Triangle, or they've been called that by other people. Nina, Avery and Melanie have been friends for a long time. It's the summer and the one of them goes off to a sort of Stanford college sort of school summer internship type thing, and the other 2 stay at home. A relationship forms between the 2 at home, and a romantic relationship, and this is a look at how that changes the dynamic of their friendships, changes the dynamic of all of their friendships. The 2 that are having a relationship, the friend who finds out, or the friend who isn't involved in that relationship, and their friendship and how they continue with that friendship. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good story. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. There were bits in it I found a little bit irritating, and it felt quite young, but I did enjoy it. It was okay, and it was interesting, you know, that this one has been challenged for its content, and yeah, it was okay. I gave this one 3 stars. And then the final 2 books are books that I've picked up as part of Own Voices October, which I'm taking part in and so far really enjoying. The first book is When We Collided by Emery Lord. So our main character, or one of our main characters in this book, has bipolar, and the author herself has suffered from bipolar, and so this is an Own Voices story. So this is the story of a boy and a girl and a relationship they form over the summer. Our main character, Jonah, lives in a very small sort of seaside town of Verona Cove. He's lived there his whole life. He has 6 siblings, and his father has recently passed away about 7 months ago, and his mother has gone into a state of depression. Jonah and his 2 other older siblings are taking care of the 3 younger ones, and his life has changed, and he is struggling with grief and loss, as well as having to become the carer of his siblings. And enter Vivi. She's there on summer. She's a whirlwind of bright colours and fun, and a hurricane of emotions, and a relationship forms between Jonah and Vivi. I'd say the main themes of this were an exploration of grief and loss and depression, and of course we cover bipolar in here as well. Also, something which I think isn't covered very often, but unfortunately for a lot of young people now is a reality for them, is being a carer, having to look after not just a parent but siblings when you're still so young yourself. I felt this was handled really well. I mean, I know there's been some people that have said with this book that there is this sort of insta-love attraction, but when you're a teenager, you do really fall for someone very fast, and I didn't feel like it was like wham bam, right, that's it. They had a date, but the instant chemical attraction that makes you fancy someone is there straight away. I mean, that's how you know that you want to go on a date with someone in the first place. So I thought that was quite well handled. My only criticism with this book was that I felt like the teenagers spoke in too much of an adult way. I felt like they had too mature conversations, which I didn't feel quite felt realistic enough. I really enjoyed that mental illness in this book wasn't glorified, which I think's important, but I did feel like we didn't get much of Vivi's character when she wasn't in the throes of bipolar, and I felt like it would have been quite nice to have seen more of her character as just as Vivi, or have known a bit more about her before, because we mainly just see her in this sort of more manic side of her mental illness. However, we're just seeing a snapshot of her life, and at this snapshot of her life, this is who she is. So I think, you know, how can we complain really? It's, you haven't got, you know, all day we haven't got you know, that part of her life in here. But I feel that's something that's definitely left at the end that we can imagine for her future and how she might be in the future. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I definitely think that it's worth picking up and giving a read, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then finally this week I picked up Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. I really loved that this book is about set design for films. It's something I know very little, if nothing about, and reading this really made me want to find out more. It was very interesting, very refreshing, very different, something that I'd never seen covered in a book before. I love in a way that this book doesn't go into a massive chunk of it giving us the coming out story of our main character, who is a lesbian. I feel like it's just we do get a background into sort of, you know, how she realised that she was into girls, but I didn't feel like we needed, because that's not really the basis of the story. We're past that. She's comfortable with it. She knows who she is. She's happy in who she is, and I really liked that we didn't get that so much. It was nice to just be within a story, and our main character happens to be a lesbian. So Emmy is an aspiring set designer. She's just broken up with her girlfriend Morgan, who has broken up with her, who she still has to work with. She also works with her best friend Charlotte, who is a very strong female character in this as well. I really enjoyed the two friendships. One day her and Charlotte go to an estate sale looking for some stuff for their set design, and they come across a record, and within the sleeve of that record is a letter, which is a letter from the person whose estate sale it is to somebody else, and this sort of leads them on a journey of a bit of a mystery. This mystery leads them to a girl called Ava, who is struggling to find herself and has a bit of a tumultuous background, and this story just follows Ava and her coming into finding out more about herself. It follows Charlotte and Emmy and their work and their life and relationships, and yeah, I just really enjoyed this. I gobbled it up. I read it in a day. I definitely recommend it, and I gave this one 4 stars. So this was a really good reading couple of weeks, and I really enjoyed a lot of the books that I've read. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you enjoyed any of these. Let's chat in the comments as always, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.